Well, welcome to the Daily Word from the teaching ministry of Redeemer Bible Church in Gilbert, Arizona. My name is Tim, and I'm one of the pastors here. In this episode, we are continuing in the Gospel of Luke, beginning in chapter 20, verses 27 through 47. Well, let's begin. Remembering the section before, I just clarified given to Caesar what is his, and to God what belongs to him. And again, always attempting to trap Jesus. I mean, literally, one has to admire their tenacity to catch him in error and discredit them. They don't, here's a spoiler alert, but they try. So verse 27 says, "There came to him some Sadducees, those who deny that there is a resurrection." And those of you who grew up in church can remember they're sad, you see. Remember that? I like that Luke set the table regarding the Sadducees' disbelief in the resurrection. This far-fetched scenario was designed to prove themselves right and make fun of that crucial doctrine. So verse 28, they say, and they ask him a question, saying, "Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies, having a wife but no children, the man must take the widow and raise up offspring for his brother." This was called levirate marriage, or brother's brother. It was to carry the deceased man's name forward and his inheritance. This was explained back in Deuteronomy 25, 5, and 6, if you want to look at that. Now there are 7 brothers. Continuing with the scenario, the first took a wife and died without children, and the second and the third took her, and likewise all 7 left no children and died. Afterward, the woman also died. So in the resurrection, again, trying to trap, therefore, whose wife will the woman be? For the 7 had her as wife. Well, obviously, this is an absurd scenario, and in that time, even more extremely far-fetched. Maybe in our day, 7 marriages is not unheard of, but still highly improbable. They were hoping that he would attest to no afterlife. Fail. Verse 34, "And Jesus said to them, the sons of this age marry and are given in marriage, but those who are considered worthy to attain to that age and to the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage." Well, this can be a difficult passage for some, as they have hopes to see their deceased spouse in heaven. Scripture indicates we will see them, but will not be married. How that works, and all the obvious questions of age, and if there were bad relationships, will they be repaired in heaven? If you have multiple wives, there's just a lot of questions. But if there are no tears and no sin, I believe there will be reconciliation and love as we are in the presence of the Lord, and knowing your spouse or your kids that way as we do in our earthly life just won't be important like we think it will be. So verse 36 says, "For they cannot die anymore because they are equal to angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. But that the dead are raised, even Moses showed in the passage about the bush, where he calls the Lord the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob. Now he is not God of the dead, but of the living, for all live to him." So after the resurrection, all the human experiences of birth, marriage, sex, and death will be changed forever. So verse 39, "Then some of the scribes answers, 'Teacher, you have spoken well,' for they no longer dare to ask him any question." It's such a funny, okay, you win. I mean, how many times do you have to be told? But they gave him his street cred. In the accounts of this story in both Matthew and Mark, the identifiable problem was a lack of spiritual or scriptural knowledge and a lack of recognition of the power of God. But I'm sure Jesus was thrilled he passed their test. The scribes were particularly pleased that the Sadducees were rebuked. I mean, people weren't getting along back then? Shocker. Jesus had silenced the critics and silenced the naysayers, forcing them to rethink their positions. The next section is entitled, "Whose Son is the Christ?" Verse 41. "But he said to them, 'How can they say that Christ is David's son? For David himself says in the book of Psalms, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool.' David thus calls him Lord, so how is he his son?" Well, Jesus turns the table on his listeners and asks a tough theological question using Psalm 110:1 as the basis. The fact that Jesus was fully God and fully man is the idea, although not presented in this text. If they had understood that, it would be an admission that Jesus was, in fact, the Messiah. So finally in verse 45, "And in the hearing of all the people, he said to the disciples, 'Beware of the scribes who walk around in long robes and love greetings in the marketplaces and the best seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at feasts, who devour widows' houses and for a pretense make long prayers, they will receive the greater condemnation. Those are strong words. Humility is the watchword of the day. There's no humility in that. We are to be humbled by our God's love for us and his decision to call us his own. There's no place to be that kind of person. And Jesus has special words for the leaders, the religious leaders, that this is not what you are supposed to be showing your people. You're supposed to be last will be first, first will be last. We are servants, humble servants. So that's a good shot across their bow. So look forward to week 2. Be good out there.